It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Army hockey head coach, Brian Riley. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brandon. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to speaking with you.
That's wonderful. Can you talk about your coaching experience and where you got started at?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in a coaching family, right? My dad at the time just my three brothers were all into college hockey coaching. So I guess it was kind of natural once I graduated from Brown, went to play hockey in Europe, and then came back and got my start at a small D3 school in upstate New York, Plattsburgh State. So, yeah, it was a long time ago. Feels like just yesterday, but that's kind of how I got my start. But I think it was more because it was in the blood, in the family blood.
That's wonderful. Can you talk about building the Army with the culture of, like, of course, your family has
Yeah.
always went to Army?
Yeah. So, I mean, you just mentioned a key word, Brandon, culture, right? Culture is the most important thing. Culture is something that as a coach you have to guard every day. And so our culture is kind of based on family, like that's where it starts. So um, when I got into coaching 30 plus years ago, like I said, my dad was a very successful coach. He said, Bry, I'm going to give you one piece of advice. And I didn't know if I had to get a pad of paper or I wasn't sure what he was going to say. And he said, Bry, you make sure you show your players you care for them more as people than you do as hockey players. And so I can go in and put my arm around every single one of our guys and tell them I love them. And love's a strong word, but they know that. And at the same time, I can go in tomorrow and put my foot in their butt too. They'll still know I love them, but so that's really important for us. We start with family because if you have a team culture, one that is really close and has that family type bond, then you'll be able to accomplish anything. You'll be able to overcome any type of adversity. And Brandon, you know that during the course of a season, you're going to have adversity. So yeah, I mean, for us, it's all about the Army hockey family.
Can you talk about your experience in the American Hockey Coaching Association?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to obviously start off as a member, and a while back I was approached by people on the board asking me if I would like to be on the board, and um, you know, I looked at it as an opportunity to kind of give back, right? College hockey's been great to me, and we're very fortunate that we would have every year. And so I started as vice president on the board for membership, and then I was very fortunate to be selected to be the president of the association. And again, it's as a president, I was kind of a figurehead. There are so many other people on the board that seem to do all the work, and but really an opportunity to give back to the game that's been really good to me. And I encourage all the coaches if they have an opportunity to give back, albeit on something like the Coaches Association Board of Governors or in any way, they should do it. So it's been a wonderful experience for me to be associated with the association, more so as just a member.
What was your experience like being associated with the North Carolina Division One men's ice hockey?
Yeah, so obviously being a Division One hockey program, you know that's in college hockey, that's the highest level that you can get. So as a player, somebody who played at this level, it's obviously very competitive. And now that I'm kind of wearing a different hat as a coach, it's allowed me to stay involved with the sport, and no different than as a player. Well, there are some differences, but the highs and lows, right? Like a Friday, you can win a big game, and on Saturday, on Saturday morning, you're on top of the world, and then Saturday you turn around and lose a game, and it's like, you got knocked down, and you got to get yourself up. So I'm really, really thankful that I've had the opportunity to stay involved with the sport, because my fire still kind of burns, that competitive fire that I think all of us have, and this has been a way that I've been able to kind of keep that compete, albeit in a different way than being a player.
Can you talk about some of the opponents that you have played against?
Yeah, so in our league, we have some Eastern teams that like American International College in Springfield, Mass. We have Bentley right outside of Boston. We have Sacred Heart in Connecticut. We have Holy Cross. And then as you go a little farther west, in Western New York and Pennsylvania, we have Mercyhurst and Robert Morris. We have Niagara, Canisius, and RIT. Our biggest rival, though, is Air Force, and they're obviously kind of strange to have a team in your league 2 time zones away, but obviously Army and Air Force, you got to figure that that's going to be a rivalry, and it certainly is. Like, we try to beat the hell out of each other for 60 minutes on a Friday and 60 minutes on a Saturday, but then we'll line up together and salute the fans, and then we'll have our seniors from both teams step out on the red line, and the rest of the players from both teams intermingled, and we play the alma maters from each school. So it's really different than maybe NC State and North Carolina. Obviously bitter rivals, but ours is special because we know that ultimately we're on the same team, and so that's been really, really neat to be a part of such a special rivalry.
That's wonderful that you have such a special rivalry with with Air Force.
Yeah, it truly is. And like I said, we do try to beat the hell out of each other, but there's a respect factor because nobody in our league knows what we're going through more than Air Force, and vice versa, both being at service academies.
Can you talk about coaching with your family and playing with your family?
Yeah, so like I told you earlier, Brandon, I was raised in a coaching family. My dad coached here for 36 years. He's very successful. I'm sure he was actually one that cut Herb Brooks, and because my dad was a coach of the '60 Olympic team that won the first gold medal. And so it was always neat growing up as a kid, because the history that my dad had and the connections, and then myself and my 3 older brothers, we all went away to schools. Like Jay played at Harvard, Rob played at Boston College, Mark played at Boston College, I played at Brown, my sister played at St. Lawrence. And the boys, we all got to come back and play against my dad. So that was always neat. And then I just experienced that for myself. My 2 sons played in our league at Mercyhurst, and it was pretty neat to see them, even though they were on the other team, but to see them come back here to West Point. It was kind of a proud dad, proud parent moment to see your 2 sons on the ice, kind of living their dream. And so hockey's been hockey's been a family business for the Rileys, and now my 2 sons are both in coaching. We open up at Long Island University in a week, and my nephew's a coach there. So, like I said, hockey's definitely in our blood.
Can you talk about your intense role as the recruitment coordinator for many players that have been at Army?
Yeah. So as an assistant coach, I spent more time on the road here. And now, obviously, as a head coach, I work with some other coaches on our staff that are on the road, kind of beating the bushes, and then I'll follow up, whether it be on video or go out to see them. Right now, we can't do that. But I have two great coaches here, and our associate head coach, Zach McKelvey, does an unbelievable job with the recruiting. And we have a new assistant coach that came in this year, Arlen Marshall. So those guys do the bulk of the work. And then what I try to do is meet with the young men and their parents and give them a good perspective of not only what our hockey program is all about, but what West Point is all about. So, and to be quite honest, Brandon, like I told you, my dad had a lot of success as a college coach and Olympic coach. And so as a kid growing up, I wondered, like, why didn't he go after a big time hockey school? And now having sat where he sat, Brandon, I know why he stayed. Like, the opportunity to be around cadets on a daily basis. No offense to the coaches, Coach K or anybody else out there, makes coaching at West Point the most rewarding and humbling job in all of college sports because of the cadets. So we know as coaches here, we share in the overall development of these young men and women to be future leaders of our country. And it's really, really, like I said, really, really humbling and rewarding.
That's wonderful. Can you talk about the recruitment process and, of course, what do you look at in recruits?
Yeah. So Brandon, like you could probably go on a hockey rink and watch a game and pick out the best players out there. And that's not a slight at you, but for us, it's much, much more than hockey, right? Like, and then you factor in when we go to watch a game, and let's say there's 40 guys playing, between the two teams, we may eliminate 3/4 of them because maybe they don't have the grades to get into West Point, or they don't have the character to get into West Point. So we're dealing with a very, very small group. But it's so much more than ability and talent, like character. And as you and I talked about at the start, your culture. If you're going to have a great culture, you have to have players with strong character. And here at West Point, the preeminent leadership institution in the world, we're looking with young men that have leadership qualities. So again, our pool's a lot different than certainly everybody in our league except for Air Force, and everyone else in our league can recruit Canadians or Europeans. Like, obviously we can't do that. So we have to do our homework every year to kind of identify who those top student athletes are on all of these different teams. And once we do that, and then in normal times, we're able to get them to a visit here at West Point, like West Point does a great job selling itself.
What is the official visit like when it comes to trying on the hockey jersey?
Yeah, so obviously when we bring young men out for a visit and have them, because I think a lot of them have a vision of what it's going to be like. They think it's going to be an Army base, and when they get here, they realize it's one of, if not the most beautiful college campuses. And then you start walking around here and you feel the history and tradition of the place. You start looking around at the statues, Washington, Eisenhower, MacArthur, Patton, Grant. And it's they have a saying here, much of who we learn about in history, we're taught here. And so again, being able to bring young men onto the campus. And the most important thing, like I said, it's a beautiful place, but it's the people that make the place, from our players to the professors to the leadership team here. Just like, I mean, to be quite honest, Brandon, I pinch myself that I'm the head coach here at West Point. Can't believe it.
Speaking about that, can you talk about the game day and what that is like as a head coach?
Yeah, well, game day, oh God, like in some respects, it's a worse day because you wake up and it's just like, especially when you're on the road, you're like sitting around waiting. You know, you have a practice, you have a pregame meal. And that's the other thing. It seems like all you do is eat when you're on the road, and then you get to the rink 2 hours ahead of time, and you wait. But I'll tell you what, there's not a better feeling in the world when that final buzzer goes off, and you have a W, right? And you know, like I said, the days can be long during the season, the game days, because you're up early, and then after the game, you know, you're watching tape and we rewatching the game, meeting with your other coaches, trying to think about the lineup, because we always play on a Friday, Saturday. So back-to-back games make it hard. That's why you kind of enjoy Sundays to catch your breath and get ready to go for the next week.
Are there any players that have made it into the NHL?
Yeah, well, actually, so we had a player that was here, Danny Highnote, and then in the 90s that got drafted. So he left West Point and went, and his name is on the Stanley Cup playing with the Avalanche. We have two players in pro right now, Parker Gahagan, a goalie with the Toronto Maple Leafs organization, and our senior most valuable player last year got signed by the Buffalo Sabres, and he has an American Hockey League contract. So he and Parker are waiting for the season to get going.
Can you talk about, of course, like when you said like you have two players that have already signed, what is that process like? Because I know that like as a college athlete, you can't play college sports if you've already like have an agent. What is that process like?
Yep. Different here at a service academy, and the rules kind of just changed last year that they're allowing cadets at the Air Force or West Point or the midshipmen at Navy to actually play professional sports at a high level if they're good enough. So when they're done with after they graduate, instead of commissioning as officers, they'll sign their contracts. And then when they're done with their professional career, then they'll come back and be obligated to, every cadet that graduates is obligated to 5 years of serving in the Army. So the ones that play pro sports will just do it after they're done. So it's a great policy. We think it's one that most kids, I don't care what sport, have the dream of playing pro sports. So we're able to tell young men now, if you're good enough, you can come to West Point and have that opportunity. And yet at the same time, you will have an opportunity to serve your country.
What advice would you give upcoming future college hockey players that are looking to play hockey?
Well, first of all, like for young men, make them understand that everybody's path is different. Like if you were going to be a Division I college hockey player, Brandon, and I was going to be one, your path may be a lot different than mine to get us to where we need to be. And the other thing I would say, don't be afraid. Like the difference between me and you could be very, very minimal. And so everybody has the ability to be the hardest working player on the team. That has nothing to do with size or talent, right? So so you make sure that every day, I don't care at what level you're playing, you have control. You check the box for having a great attitude. You check the box for giving it everything you've had on the practice field or on the ice. And number 3, you check the box for being a great teammate. You as a teammate understand it's not about you. It's not about playing with somebody. It's about playing for somebody. And if you're a young man or a young woman that aspires to play college sports, I think if you understand that your path is going to be different, don't worry about, what got your best friend or your neighbor to their eventual landing spot. And just like I said, check the box of, if you check the box for having great effort, great attitude, and being a great teammate, then you will be successful no matter what level, no matter where you play.
What advice would you give upcoming future college coaches that are looking to get started?
Well, you know what, Brandon, I go back to the advice that my dad gave to me. Like, you make sure you show your players that you care for them. And how you do that is you build relationships with them. You build a trust factor. You're not afraid to put your arm around them. You're not afraid to look in the eye and tell them that you love them. And at the same time, you're not afraid to hold them accountable. So, and don't compromise. Don't ever compromise your values, because you think a player may be good and he may help your team, but you're going to look past some things, like, because in the long run, that will come back and bite you.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with the program at on social media?
Yeah, so obviously, if they go to Go Army Sports, West Point, and I'm just looking up because I'm not the biggest social media guy. I've gotten better, but if they go to @coach_B_R Riley, they can follow me on Twitter. But I think, like I said, Go Army Sports, Go Army West Point Athletics. Like, you can follow all the coaches here.
Thank you again, Coach Brian, for your interview.
Follow Army Sports.
Thank you again, Coach Brian, for your interview, and best of luck at Army for the hockey program.
Awesome, and hopefully we'll get to do it again in the future.
Sounds good. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at @talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Brian, for your interview, and best of luck.
All right, thanks, Brandon. You have a good day.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.